for another video installment. Today's discussion is going to be an interesting one, right? It's going to be a little different for us as a divorce law firm, family law firm, and a law firm that does, things like temporary protective orders and criminal defense. Today, we are going to talk about infidelity, how it can lead to divorce, and really finding ways and pathways to stay together, to stay married, especially from the perspective of a divorce attorney. There are some things that you can do to make your relationship strong, to keep you and your spouse out of our office. That is our major hope and goal for you and your family is that you can stay together. I know that sometimes that is a challenge. However, and it's the fastest way to put us out of business is to essentially stay together and to again make certain that your family unit is very strong. So I want to again, as ethical attorneys, myself and attorney Wilkerson, really quickly about us, we are a boutique law firm. We love serving the great state of Georgia and Georgians. And of course we do so with the understanding that we have an ethical and moral responsibility to give back to our community, be transparent about what our representation entails, and at the same time, our goal is always to help our community, and our communities are strongest when we have strong family units in our community. That is my belief. That is Chelsea's belief. We continue to essentially do that in everything, believe that in everything that we do. It is embedded in all that we do when it comes to the law firm. And so, what we try to do is make sure that we are, providing information, not just legal information, that is going to help you in terms of dissolving your marriage or relationship. But we want to be balanced and give you information that is going to help you essentially stay out of divorce court if that's something that is possible for you. Okay. All right. So let's do a quick disclaimer first. This is for educational purposes only. This video is not intended to replace the advice or counsel of a therapist. It is absolutely not legal advice. By watching the video, it does not form an attorney-client relationship between yourself and the law office of Shakhan and Wilkerson. So do bear that in mind, okay? If you feel like that you might need more counseling, or you may need to, seek spiritual advisement, we absolutely 1000% encourage that. It's always good to, recognize that there might be a problem, get a third party involved to see if the problem can be resolved prior to, of course, going into divorce court. Divorce and family court should be, really a last resort. I do want to emphasize that for those families out there, and there might be a spouse that's contemplating divorce. This should be a last and final resort for you. Okay. If of course, and there are exceptions, because there are situations where he absolutely needs to probably be the first resort. All right. And so, of course, with the law, there are always exceptions, legal exceptions. And so there are some exceptions to that rule as well. Okay. All right. But this is your spouse. This is your forever person. This is the person that you pledged to grow old with. And so we want to give you some information that's going to help you stay together, right? Obviously, strong families, they produce very balanced children. They have, greater assets. They have, a higher wealth, right? They, so, they are a lot more stable sometimes than situations where, you have to essentially take on all of life's responsibilities and adulting alone, okay, and by yourself. So, he who finds a good partner finds a great thing. I know that I am remixing the Bible verse, but it is my belief that again, Strong communities have strong families. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about infidelity. That's what we're going to discuss. And I think I gave you the roadmap a little bit earlier, and I'll touch base on what the video will essentially cover. But we're going to talk about infidelity, what can lead to infidelity, what can lead to divorce. And so we'll go through a series of possible topics where, essentially people find themselves on the outs and, might contemplate, seeking attention, affection, intimacy from someone that is not their partner, right? That's, of course, one of the first steps on a trajectory toward divorce. Okay. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what some of those things are. We'll cover them in great detail. And hopefully, at the conclusion of this video, again, if you are contemplating divorce, if you are already in the throes of litigation, it might give you some pause, and it just give you something to think about in terms of where you would like to see your relationship ultimately go. Okay, so keep in mind that most affairs do not begin overnight. Okay, and so this is not something that people just kind of wake up one morning and say, "Hey, I think I'm gonna go ahead and step out on my wife or my husband and engage in an affair." Okay, so this stuff usually brews over time. Okay, many relationships deteriorate over months, over years, and so sometimes people find themselves really emotionally vulnerable. And so the research suggests that there are some patterns and dynamics associated with increased risk of infidelity and divorce, and we'll discuss some of those things. And we'll talk a little bit about what some marriage researchers have found and what couples can do to build healthier and stronger relationships, not just here in the state of Georgia, wherever the sound of my voice reaches you. Okay. Of course, when it comes to the law, we're licensed to practice here in Georgia, but it's our hope that maybe your family, is, if you're going through something difficult, you're going through a rough patch, maybe this will be a word in season for you. Okay. So, the number one thing that can lead to infidelity and divorce is just an emotional disconnection, right? We are emotional beings, we are emotional creatures. We are not automatons, we are not robots. We have hearts, we have feelings, and that goes for even the rough and tumble guys, right? We have feelings, even though we might work double time trying to hide them. All right. So affairs oftentimes begin emotionally, well before they become physical. Okay. And so some of the signs can include just you or your partner feeling unseen, unheard. Okay. There being a lack of appreciation for what you feel like you do for your spouse or for the relationship. Feeling like you're being taken granted of. Okay. Taken for granted, I should say. And then, of course, just living kind of like roommates where you are emotionally just disconnected from one another. All right. And so, one of the questions you do want to make sure that you're asking over time, and maybe it's a question you should ask yourself weekly or monthly, is when's the last time you made your spouse feel truly special and appreciated? Okay. That's really important. Human beings want to feel appreciated. Husbands want to feel appreciated by their families. Wives want to feel appreciated by their families. Okay. And so, you want to make sure that your spouse is feeling appreciated, and so, of course, it's sometimes hard for us to open our big mouths and tell, people thank you even for, small gestures. But, you want to make sure that you're taking time to show that love and appreciation to your spouse. All right. The next is going to be number two is going to be this the communication breakdown. All right. And we see this in sometimes in relationships. And so this is according to decades of relationship research. Communication problems are among the strongest predictors of marital stress, actually. Okay. So if couples are having difficulty communicating, that's a telltale sign that something is wrong, all right, and that something needs to be addressed, and the ship needs to be righted sooner rather than later. Okay, so common issues can include criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, just a feeling of contempt for the other party, and avoiding difficult discussions and conversations. And so healthy couples, what they do is they try to listen more. And that, you know what, that is a lost art, I will say. And of course, I don't know how much today's society, and of course our social media has to do with, just the lost art of listening and being quiet and, hearing the other person's perspective. But the listening part is what healthy couples do. Okay, and as a practical tip, you have to shut your mouth to listen. Okay, so it's difficult to talk and listen at the same time, right? So, and you should not be. You want to practice active listening. Okay, you should not be just simply waiting for your turn to talk, and just quiet while waiting your turn to talk and focused really on your own ideas and your thoughts. So you want to seek understanding before responding. Okay, so make sure that you understand what the other party is saying, and that's going to also entail active listening. Number three is just going to be feeling unappreciated, and I think all of us probably knows what that feels like, and it's one of the most common complaints heard by therapists. So you might hear one spouse, and we hear this all the time with the folks who retain us for divorce. One spouse just says, "Hey, I do everything. All right, I feel unappreciated." Okay, or the other spouse never notices all of the energy and the effort that I put in, or just no token of appreciation for anything that I do. Okay, so small appreciation can have an enormous impact, and so you want to of course make sure that you appreciate and let your spouse know that you appreciate them. That's really important to keep you out of divorce court. So simple ideas to help you with appreciation, giving compliments, thank you notes, text messages, physical affection, celebrating small victories. Okay. And again, this is the communication piece, right? You're going to have to communicate. And so sometimes this is challenging, just really depending on maybe your personality type. Maybe you're not really a big talker. There's a great book that I read years ago. I think it was regarding love languages. Okay, and so it's important to know maybe what your love language is, as well as what your spouse's love language is. Chances are they're different, and so some people really like, verbal affirmation, and that might be something that you need to engage in. Okay, to make sure that your spouse does feel appreciated. Number four is just going to be a lack of quality time, and this is, of course, in a world that's very busy. We oftentimes find ourselves very busy as a result, and so life can get busy, and with children, careers, and phones and responsibilities, it can very easily be overwhelming. But research suggests that many couples really stop intentionally dating one another. Okay, so you might have done that at the beginning of your relationship where you were wooing your partner. You got to bring that old thing back, baby, right? You're gonna have to go to that jazz club, step out with your spouse, head to church. Okay, go to the park, play together. Okay, go to the beach, read together, pray together. Those types of things are going to need to be done together, especially in a very busy world. I recently read a book, I think it was called Atomic Habits, where you can compound habits. Like there might be something that you do individually that you can decide to do occasionally with your partner. Maybe you go for walks at the beginning of your day. That's something maybe that you can incorporate, spending that time with your partner. And then that might be one way for you to spend time, quality time, as you are actually working out. Okay. So there are ways to squeeze in that quality time, even if your availability is fairly tight. So you want to think about that. All right. Um, One of the questions that you do want to ask yourself is, when was the last time I went on a date with my spouse? And if you can't remember, then you might want to get something planned, okay? And so, the date doesn't have to be something extravagant, though it could. You can go on a staycation. You can hit dinner, and hit a jazz club, right? And maybe go to the opera, something that your wife might want to do, or go to the rodeo, something your husband may want to do, okay? Or go to a monster car show, okay? Something that maybe you both want to do, okay? So a lot of options regarding the dating part, okay? Emotional safety is going to be number five. And so can your spouse tell you that, hey, we're struggling, or I'm struggling, okay? Or I feel lonely, or I feel scared, right? Or disappointed, okay? So you want to be able to have those conversations, because that's really going to be the first opportunity for you to really right any kind of potential wrongs, and steer the ship in the direction it needs to go, to keep yourself out of divorce court, or to keep your spouse engaged, okay? And keep both of you from engaging in acts of infidelity, or stepping outside of your relationship. So if you fear criticism, right, if you're not really open to having conversations and talking, and you shut your spouse down, then that can lead to future problems. So you want to make sure you have a healthy marriage, where communication, at least the doors are open to communicate, the channels of communication are open, and that's going to help with at least hopefully warding off any type of potential problems in the future. Number six is going to be just unresolved conflict, okay? And that really bleeds into number five a little bit. But couples argue. That's not a big thing. But the difference is, some of those couples that can't really get back on track, or really repair things post argument, are going to have some difficulty. Okay, so unhealthy couples can accumulate resentment, and that can prove problematic, okay, in the long term, for your relationship. So you don't want to make yesterday's arguments really become a bedrock for a decision, to really move forward with a divorce ultimately. Okay. Number seven is really important. Intimacy declines. Okay. So, and that includes, of course, more than sexual activity. It can include things like holding hands, hugging, laughing, eye contact, just deep conversations, shared experiences. But as that intimacy kind of drops, it opens the door for emotional, as well as really physical affairs, and seeking intimacy elsewhere, right, where you're not receiving it. And so you do want to reinforce that with one another. You do want to, really make yourself available, emotionally available, and maybe, of course, physically available to your partner. Okay. And that's something that you guys can talk about. All right. Number eight is a big one, especially in these times. It's just difficult times, but they're beautiful times, but they can be they're challenging times. All right, so stress and burnout. Okay, so outside pressures absolutely affect marriage, and so some examples are, financial stress. And so right now, there is absolutely, just really has been a financial downturn. At least the forecast, are the news is forecasting a potential downturn in the months to come. And so that's stressful, not just on people, but it's stressful on relationships. Of course, finances are one of the top reasons that people find themselves in divorce court. And second, things are like parenting. And so if you have disagreements about parenting, disagreements about what direction the parenting should be moving in, for the betterment of the children, health problems, career demands, caregiving, all of this stuff can be stressful, and can lead to burnout. And if, of course, couples are fighting, it can become problematic, and people can look elsewhere, for really for some type of emotional support. Okay, and so that's something that you want to be mindful of as well. All right. Number nine is technology and social media. Social media is huge, guys. Research has linked excessive technology use to really problematic social behaviors when it comes to relationships that might have lower satisfaction, relationship satisfaction in some couples, and it can lead to emotional affairs. It can lead to secret messaging. Most importantly, it can lead to reconnecting with old partners. That's the biggest thing that we see with social media, is it's just an opportunity to have access to a real life Rolodex. Okay, and so if you and your spouse are arguing, it's not real challenging for you to hop on Facebook or Instagram, and DM, one of your former partners, and you find yourself in a very compromising situation, right? Because you know you decided to reconnect in a moment of weakness. So excessive phone use, another thing that we see is just people comparing their relationships on social media to these curated online posts and situationships. So what you see on social media is you know many times it's not real, guys. I know it looks real, okay. I know that that relationship on social media looks perfect, okay, but a lot of times that stuff is very much curated. Many times people are shocked that these people that have these great social media relationships, appear to at least, end up in divorce courts. Like, but they look so perfect together, right? And people used to say that about, for example, Will and Jada, right? And so it turns out, right, that there was a lot of chaos and entanglements that were happening in the background. And so you got to be very, very careful of comparing yourself, comparing your relationship to what you are seeing on social media, because the stuff is not real. Okay, it's especially curated, and you do have to be mindful of that. Okay, or you're going to find yourself very unhappy, and you're going to find yourself in essentially in divorce court if you again compare yourself unfairly to something that is not real. All right. Number 10 is going to be just unmet expectations. Okay, so sometimes couples never discuss money. They don't discuss their dreams, parenting goals, gender roles, house responsibilities, or household responsibilities, retirement, religion, family boundaries, expectations, those type of things. And so, with that, those unmet expectations, it can just lead to again, a bad road that, can lead to a rough patch that can ultimately, be laying the groundwork for a divorce. All right. Number 11 is going to be just the loss of friendship, which is sad. Okay. Because many of these relationships, folks begin as friends, and to lose that element of the relationship, it feels very tragic. Okay, so many experts describe your friendship with your spouse as really the cornerstone of any kind of long-term relationship. Okay, so if that goes out the door, then it's makes sense that everything else crumbles. So you do want to make sure that you nurture the friendship. So you want to make sure you're laughing together, that you eat together, travel together, dream together. Those are going to be things that are going to help you when it comes to maintaining, yeah, that friendship, because that friendship is like any friendship. Okay, it has to be nurtured, and you have to make sure that you are feeding it. Okay, and you're not just getting together to discuss the bills or discuss the children. Okay, because even when the children leave and you're empty nesters, then what are you going to talk about? If you're not friends, then it's you already know where you're headed. We see empty nesters all the time. They stayed together for the children. Okay, and the children are gone, and they wake up and they're not friends. They are roommates. Okay, and so that's something that you don't want to have happen to your relationship. Number 12 is individual growth just stops. Okay, and so healthy marriages involve two people who hopefully you can continue to grow. With time. Sometimes it's difficult to move in the same direction, but you want to move nonetheless. as best as you can. All right. You want to encourage learning, exercising together, faith, purpose. Okay. Personal development. You want to support your goals, your spouse's goals, instead of trying to compete with them. This stuff is all important, so that everyone is moving in the same direction. When that happens, when people are, maybe one person is more motivated than the other, then there can have some stress fractures in that relationship, which can ultimately crumble and lead to divorce. Okay, and so you want to also the importance of repair attempts if things have gone awry already. Okay, sometimes things have happened. Someone has stepped out. Someone is giving their attention, and they're engaging in an emotional affair with others. Because most couples are not conflict free. That's important to know as well. That's the dangers of social media. Just understanding that where two people are, there's probably some form of conflict. Keep that in mind. Where two people are or more, there's probably some form of conflict. You're not going to be conflict free. Okay, so you have to find a way to say you're sorry or you understand, or just find a way to be apologetic, starting over, and requesting to start over, and trying to understand why your spouse might feel the way that they felt. So repair often matters, and it's important to try to repair things, before they are completely broken. Okay, and sometimes things break and they can be fixed. Sometimes things break and they cannot be fixed. Okay. So hopefully, your relationship is not, irreparable, if, you guys still might have hope, that you can, kind of get back on the same track. All right. So you want to kind of think about what makes your spouse feel loved. And I know that might sound a little cheesy, but so, maybe your spouse really likes quality time or words of affirmation. So I talked to you about the love languages, right? And I thought there were five. I might be wrong. Been a long time since I read the book. Things like acts of service or physical affection, thoughtful gifts. Those were, I believe, some of the things, the languages that your spouse and yourself, you may speak. So it's important to know what your love language is. It's important to know what your spouse's love language is, so that both of you are being spoken to, both of you feel heard, both of you feel appreciated. Okay, so rather than assuming that, you might want to do that research, maybe pick up that book or one like it, and find out exactly, what your language is and your spouse's language, so everybody can be happy. Okay, because everybody deserves happiness, in that marriage. There's a saying, happy wife, happy life. No, no, everyone deserves happiness. Okay, not just one party. It's not just the wife deserves happiness, and the husband is damned to purgatory or hell. Everyone in that relationship deserves happiness, and there's a pathway for everyone to experience that happiness. Okay, so it's important to keep that in mind. Okay, so here are some habits that you can do to essentially strengthen your marriage, especially if there are things that you don't engage in already. You can eat together regularly. I'm a big fan of everyone sitting at a table, at least eating dinner together. Sometimes that's the only meal people can sit down and have together. I understand that. Putting your phones away during conversations. You can always come back to your phone. You can leave it in your bedroom. Your phone will always be there. Trust me, it's not going anywhere. These conversations, these people in your life, they, however, may not always be there. So prioritize that person, your spouse. Say thank you. Crack your big lips open, open your big mouth to say thank you. All right. Don't be selfish. If someone is doing something for you, they don't have to do it for you. It does not hurt you, to say thank you, especially if it's your spouse. Okay. And so, make sure that you're saying thank you, even for small things. Okay. Give genuine compliments, right? And so sometimes I know that, uh, in certain communities, I can say in my in my culture at least, we see someone looking nice, and we'll say, oh, where you going? Where you stepping out to? Rather than say, hey man, you look good, you look nice, where you headed to. Rather than giving the compliment, it's a I guess a passive aggressive compliment that we understand. It's like, hey, where you going to? Or where you headed to? Right? Just tell the person that they look nice, and then you can follow up with that question. Okay. Hugging people or kissing your spouse before you leave the house. People, every day is not promised, right? People can get involved in car accidents, and folks don't wake up the next day. So that might be the last time that you see your spouse. So you want to make sure that you are, giving, showing appreciation, showing love to your spouse prior to leaving for the day. Praying and reflecting together is real important as well, right? So, the family that prays together, they say stays together. So, meditating together, whatever, any kind of, spiritual, um, situation that you guys might have in your house, spiritual practices, you can engage in those things together. Okay, reflect together. Scheduling regular date nights, checking in emotionally each day, finding out how your partner is, what's going on with them, kind of taking the temperature, making sure that they're good. So you want to address problems early, and so you don't want resentment, things like that to build, and you want to, if you could address it, get it addressed. All right. Now, we would always suggest that you think about bringing in a third party and the big guns when it comes to counseling if you feel like that type of help, that level of help might be appropriate, right? If you guys are having the same arguments over and over again, if your communication is broken down, if your trust has been damaged, maybe there has been an affair, okay? If there's emotional distance between you two and that distance is growing, or both spouses are considering a separation, early intervention by a specialist, or, some type of a coach, or, again, maybe some type of a spiritual advisor is going to be advisable here, okay? Because that, as again, divorce should be a last resort. And again, as I said in the beginning, there are exceptions. Okay, so just understand that you can keep your relationship moving in a positive direction. You can stay out of divorce court. You can stay together. You can experience long-term happiness and companionship. You do not have to always land in divorce court. I know for many that is the first step. And I just, as a divorce attorney, I want to tell you that it should be your last. Okay, it should not be your first go-to. Okay, and again, there are exceptions, but if you can stay together, you've invested in one another. Okay, you invested in one another emotionally. You invested in one another physically. You invested in one another financially. So you have made a commitment. You have contracted with this person, and so you have made certain pledges. You have certain obligations. Okay, and so it behooves you to do everything in your power to honor those obligations. Right, having gone through divorce personally, I know of the damage that it does to each individual spiritually, emotionally, and I know the havoc that it can wreak on children. Okay, and so you want to make sure that you are, if possible, doing everything in your power to honor that obligation, so that you can be happy, and you can again have a long-term companion that you can enjoy life with. Okay, so you don't have to end up in divorce court, guys. You can. There are ways to stay together. There are ways to address any type of problems. But as my mother would tell me, An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, the best way to keep yourself out of, again, the attorney's office is to make sure that you are pouring into your relationship in all the ways that we just covered. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, this was a different type of video. This is a video aimed at really helping couples, married couples, hopefully contemplate ways to enrich their lives, enrich their relationships, and to stay together. I would be happy to close the family law divorce division of our law firm if it meant stronger families, fewer divorces, because that's going to make stronger communities. And it makes, of course, for a much, much brighter future for our young people coming from two-parent families, two-parent households. Okay. So hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. If you are, of course, contemplating divorce and maybe you've gone through all of these steps and you still feel like that you guys are headed to divorce court, we can always help you out. You can give us a call at 478-845-1213 or 404-999-9529, or you can go right up there to the link in our bio, go ahead and get scheduled, and we'll hold a consultation with you. And we'll see if we're a good fit for you, and vice versa. And if we can assist you, of course, we'll be more than happy to do so. Okay. All right, guys, been a pleasure talking to you. If this video has been helpful, go ahead and like it. If you know someone that's having a rough patch in their relationship, I think you have an obligation to share this video with them. And of course, make sure that you like and follow us for all the legal content regarding family law, divorce, and criminal defense work. Right. And hit that notification bell so that you know when we post videos immediately as they are posted in real time. All right, guys, pleasure seeing you. Make sure that you go through our video library. There is probably plenty of videos that can speak to whatever your legal situation is, if it sounds within family law or criminal defense. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.